Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 414. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I'm very worried because Sean's calling me the Agent Robbins of the show and has a chest of drawers waiting for me. So says the Sensei of the Whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we are talking about returning favorites, Secret Six #1. We're talking about Gotham by Midnight #1, Batman Eternal #35, and Teen Titans #4. In a packed episode, we talked about some recent favorites that we've been loving and enjoying. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, I want to shout out Suiciders #1. This is a brand new book by DC, written and drawn by Lee Bermeo. It's a post-apocalyptic story taking place in New Angeles. And I'm a big fan of Lee Bermeo art. Lee Bermeo, you'll remember from things like Joker, Batman Noel, Luthor. And so this is an ongoing series, probably a limited series coming from Lee Bermeo. I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm jumping on it just because of Lee Bermeo. I mean, the artwork is just gorgeous. It's $3.99 regularly, 50% off, only $1.99. That, for me, is always, that 50% off deal just kind of goes, yeah, why wouldn't I try it? I mean, it's Lee Bermeo art. Just jump on board. And cool, unique story to be told in there. So that's Suiciders #1. Great recommendation if you're looking for just wonderful storytelling skill. Lee Bermeo's really been hitting it out of the park. Over at InStockTrades.com, they always do these amazing deals of the week, and they've got the Superman Unchained hardcover. It's 50% off, only $14.99. They've got Royals Masters of War, 50% off, only $7.49. You can just find all kinds of really cool deals going on there. They're deals of the week, so every week there's new deals. They have some of the Marvel Masterworks on there at 50% off. Those deals of the week are always 50% off, and it's just really good stuff. So if you haven't had a chance, go check out our friends at InStockTrades.com. $50 or more gives you free shipping. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's see here. Yeah, you'd fit in here. Let's talk Secret Six.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
Our first conversation this episode is the return of the Secret Six segment. Secret Six #1. One Less Mouth to Feed. The writer is Gail Simone. The penciler is Ken Lashley. Inkers Ken Lashley with Drew Geraci. Colorist is Jason Wright. Letterer Carlos M. Mangual. Cover by Dale Eaglesham and Jason Wright. Variant cover by Ken Lashley. Assistant editor is Matt Humphreys, and the editor is Mark Doyle. If there was any name butchery at all, I wholeheartily apologize. When I was writing notes for this segment, I was thinking of all kinds of like cool ways I could do a joke with you, telling you that, I don't know, I kind of thought it was so-so or that type of thing. I couldn't bring myself to do that. This was everything I wanted, but I didn't know I wanted from Secret Six. This is not at all what I expected from the first issue, and I love it for being that, because it is exactly what I was hoping for from this, in the sense that it blew me away. I was so excited to have it back. It felt different. It felt edgy. It felt disturbing. It felt fun. It felt creepy. I wanted to play this as a video game. I mean, there were so many different things that were going on from this as an introduction to this series that I walked in with a lot of hype for myself, because this was one of my all-time favorite books coming back again. And I'm so glad that it wasn't what I expected, I guess is what I'm saying, bottom line, because it's a better served book for the fact that it felt fresh and new and brought about the kind of feelings I was hoping I would get from this. But that's my take. What's yours?
Well, I'm pretty much echoing your sentiments. Just like you, it was funny because I was thinking about trying to pull try to pull my usual stun. We're like, I don't know. Wasn't even going to attempt it. Just, it came right off the bat. It's a different team, but it's still some familiar people that we've seen. Gail Wright before, and we know she does an amazing job with them. So I was excited about that. Definitely excited about some new characters and seeing her handle some of these interesting, quirky people. So this is definitely going to be a different Secret Six, but it's going to be a really cool run. I'm very excited, very eager for issue 2, 3, 4, etc., etc., etc.
Atmosphere is one of the things, as we're looking at the beginning with Redemption Flats, New Mexico, and Agent Robbins and all that stuff kicking off. Atmosphere was really important for me on this. I loved the fact that this Ken Lashley, a different art style we're seeing here from him. The whole creative team's gelling together. Jason Wright doing what Jason Wright does best, really sending that mood and atmosphere with the colors. I really loved the art style of this book right from the get-go. You walk into this when it's one of your favorite books. We had 2 great art teams on the previous series that were really delivering a home run all the time. And that was what I expected when I started this. I'm so glad it wasn't that. And I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form as anything but positive for the fact that this felt fresh. It is not like anything else that I'm reading right now. As we got into this whole bar sequence, we see the woman singing. That reads so different the second time through. And I love that she was not at all what she'd seemed. We got right away into the second page to what I really wanted to see. Thomas Blake, Catman in the New 52. I wanted to see what this version of him looks like, how he acts. I'm thinking video game for this because of the fact that when I read through the first issue and then read it through the second time, I wanted to play this. And the way I envision this would be this opening sequence in the bar is really cool games have that opening sequence where you start to learn the play mechanics. So in this case, you'd be playing as Thomas Blake in the opening sequence, learning how to do the fighting combat skills. But tell me it wouldn't be cool in the whole they're captured and imprisoned to then make this a game about them escaping. With the whole team dynamic, I would want to play that. How would they escape? Could you switch between different characters or utilize the abilities of the rest of the teammates and stuff like that? This had the great opening setup for like a really lengthy, interesting story-driven video game where you would play as these characters. And Thomas Blake being your first introduction to the game mechanics, I would love to play this because it was really an edgy story that seemed like, tell me you wouldn't want to play a game where your main character is Catman and you can play as this guy, especially seeing his skill set very early in this. I remember when I first saw Wolverine, as a character. There was something edgy and dark about him and interesting and different. I'm not saying that Thomas Blake is Wolverine. I don't mean it that way. But he has that kind of edgy flavor that you get from a mystery behind a character. We don't know a lot about this Thomas Blake. We're learning that along the way in this, learning about his strength, hiding some strong inner fears. There's a very complicated, complex individual in this tough brawler that we see in the beginning. I like that part of him. I was just as interested in his fears and how they drive him as I was in his strength. And that's what made this character interesting for me. A lot happened with him in the first issue.
I never thought video game, to be honest with you, but as you're talking, that actually would be a really cool way to handle this, especially when you're saying just that opening sequence where you learn the game mechanics and you start off as him, then you shift to another player and you learn as things go on, throughout the escape. I think that would be a great way to actually handle these characters. But for me, the thing that got, right from the get-go was the more animalistic style we saw with him. You see the previous versions, of Catman, he was one with the cats. He was, very, cat-like, but it was more of a majestic lion. This is he's got a little bit of a stray cat in him. He's got a little bit on the wild side. And I do like seeing that edge to him, especially with this, different art style for the Secret Six. This is a great way to do it. We still get some really beautiful, awesome facial expressions, which is something I've always loved in all the previous creative teams. You get this very emotional expression with the eyes and the face, and just wonderful usage of colors, shadows, line work and whatnot. This was some great emotion coming out, but also we had that animal to him. We had that, that feral cat that's coming out. So I was very excited to see a little bit different edge to him, a little bit different style to the Catman we're used to.
Yeah, that was something that I really liked about him, the slightly different style to him, especially when you're getting to know him. I want him to feel like Catman. We are both big fans of Thomas Blake from the previous series, and I wanted to feel like he was familiar, but at the same time, it's hard when you take characters like this that you and I are so familiar with and love, and add that sense and that air of mystery to him. I wanted Deadshot in this series in the worst way until I read this issue. And that's not to say that I wouldn't want Deadshot in this down the road, but reading this issue and seeing Thomas interacting with the other characters that are on the playing field in this, I'm like, okay, having him as the main guy in this, that would be our connection to the previous series, is a great move, because that's our attachment for those of us that were previous readers. He's our guy. We're riding along with him, getting to know him at first for a comfort level. Getting introduced to these other characters, Black Alice, obviously being a comeback character, but, getting introduced to the other characters and seeing the new ventriloquist again really was something for me in this series that made that exciting. I wanted to know just as much about the new characters because I was riding along with Thomas Blake, and I was very into, by the point where we get to introduce the other characters, I was very into what was going on with him, so they had me. I was hooked. That's important.
Oh, yeah, and I agree with you about, wanting, to see the same, Thomas Blake that we've always seen. And to me, this is a little bit younger than the guy we're used to. The guy we're used to was the villain who had the fall from grace, who then rebuilt himself, and he had that maturity, that the humility that getting your butt kicked and being a laughing stock brings you, and he had that humility. This guy doesn't have that humility. This guy, as I said, it's more of a feral cat. It's more of the fighting style, but there is still a coolness to him. So I didn't lose that cool factor. I'm just dealing with a younger guy. I'm dealing with a little bit, I don't want to say less experience, because this guy, he's been around. You can very easily see that the way he breaks down the situation. He knows he's up against some quote-unquote state troopers. He knows they're fake because they all have the same badge number. He's got those, the visual acuities that he could see that type of stuff. And we see him throw down. And these are some beautiful, beautiful combat sequences that just show the acrobatics, that show the fierceness of him, but also shows that skill, that combat skill that is absolutely a really coolness with Catman. So this is one of those things where it's not the same guy, but I can see this guy growing into the guy that we all were like, oh my God, this guy's the greatest.
See, and I wouldn't mind if his path is different, because of the fact that this is a new Catman in the New 52. I want familiarity, not regurgitation. There's a distinction between the two. He has to feel like Catman, the guy that we know and love. But because he's going to be interacting with different characters and growing, and we're going to get to see what is this guy's morality like, and how does that play into all this? Those are things I want to discover along the way, like we did previously. I'm imagining it's going to look very different because his friendships are going to develop very differently with this twisted group. And I love that I'm saying that, because that was part of the joy of Secret Six. Very twisted group of people. There's times where this book should feel very comfortable, and these are like riding along with friends, and you should feel very strange about the fact that you consider them that. And that's something that I really like about this book. This is a great example of why this book can coexist with Suicide Squad. It just feels differently. Right from the get-go, the first issue, this does not feel like Suicide Squad 2.0. Even though they're in a prison and all that kind of stuff, it's very clear that there's something different going on with these characters. Their interactions are different. These are going to be a very different team. And I think that distinction, that separation is only going to increase as this series continues to develop. Because this team will start to feel like a family in a way Suicide Squad is never going to feel. They're going to feel like a team that's forced together because of circumstance. This team is going to gradually feel like a very demented and twisted family. That's something that's a key to Secret Six. And I have a lot of confidence in that because of circumstance. It's going to draw these people together in a very different way.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the bonding and just the growing of the team because you think about all the previous issues and the previous experience we've had with Secret Six with the buddy cop sequences with Catman and Deadshot. I want to see who Catman's going to kind of partner up with in this universe because I don't see him and Big Shot. Yeah, there's going to be probably some connection, but I'm thinking him. And I'd love to see him and Mary, Strix, working together because I think that would be interesting because she's a great character. And, of course, Black Alice is awesome. So it's just looking into the possible team-ups and the possible friendships and the possible, just that family type of that twisted, weird family dynamic growing out of these people. That's something that has me grinning and excited and going, where's this going to go next?
I loved when Thomas Blake was all of a sudden, explaining how he realized that there was something fishy going on. All your troopers have the same badge numbers, but I mess you up so bad you never walk right again, and then spray you in your face so people know whose property you are. And that sense of empowerment, territorial empowerment, carries on throughout this entire issue. There's major trade-offs here where I love that we see the people in the background kind of watching, but when we find out that the singer was in on the whole thing, and she's part of the reason that Thomas actually gets captured, and that she was paying attention to everything that he was doing as a way to gain some control over him. And we see that come play back later on when Thomas wakes up with a certain scent. Jeez. This book never seeks to be anything but a twisted joy. And that is something that I love, that everything that happens in the beginning plays into later parts of the story. And it becomes a power struggle, which is with the fact that he's being captured and taken off of the table as a free agent is something that's interesting. I want to know who captured them. I want to know why. What is the motivation? What are they trying to do with this group of 6? I want to know what the secret is.
Yes. I got to admit something. Mm-hmm. I didn't catch the line about I'm going to make sure he knows whose property he is. I read it as put the cuffs on him. That's how I'm going to let him know he's my property. It didn't dawn on me until the second, third read through that I noticed what she did. I was like, oh my God, that is awesome. And I kicked myself for not noticing it and realizing it, but I'm just thinking, okay, he was in a bar fight, and that's why he had that very distinctive smell to him. So I'm like, it kind of makes sense. It didn't dawn on me until as I said, second, third read through. And that's one of the strengths of this book. And any really great book that we love and enjoy and we gush over are the multiple read throughs, especially this one where, going through, you're seeing that little kind of joke and a little bit of insight into that character, but also just the general, just the groove and the vibe of the team. Second and third read through, and just the art. My art read through was an absolute, just a complete joy this time. And I mean, it just all full creative art team. This was just just sitting there because my art read through is just looking at the pictures, not reading any words, and just going through the story. And I was like, wow, this is part of my just deep enjoyment of this was the story being told and just that visual treat we are given throughout this.
When Thomas was talking about, escaping and trying to find a way out, and, that conversation, all of a sudden leading to over the speaker, and he attempts to escape, will be met with a penalty, and, the electricity in the floor. This is really about gaining power and control over these people for some purpose. The secret thing is is to determine how they're going to react. Is that how you're reading that? How will they react to this idea that one of them is going to have to die if they don't come to the conclusion?
Yeah. That's the thing. I was like, what is the secret? I was like, yeah, that's a really good question. I couldn't figure that out, what they're going for on this, because you figure if this is Secret Six and all six of them, which one of them is expendable? Because we know it ain't going to be Catman. We know it ain't going to be, Black Alice, or, Mary, or even Ventriloquist. We got one of two possibilities on people who could possibly be killed off, Big Shot and Porcelain. And I don't want to lose either one of them because they seem like really cool and interesting characters. And it's, what is the secret? And that's the big question. And could it be the secret that I think Porcelain has that she is carrying? And I liked how they handled that in this, because I'm guessing she's got an interesting secret, that same secret that Barbara Gordon's roommate had. I'm thinking that completely is her little secret.
I don't know who's expendable in this, or if anybody is. That's the interesting part about the whole thing. And I don't know that anybody's necessarily safe either, except maybe, Thomas Blake. But one of the things that I really loved was these facial expressions that were used. A lot of them were in there, even to the point where when that drawer opened up and you saw Mary looking in and seeing the masks, I kept wondering what was going through Mary, because I find her fascinating, Strix. I find her very fascinating. I really enjoy the character. I'm glad to see her here. The look on her face, was it because she saw the mask and was wondering if she was going to be under somebody's control again and have to, go back into that life? Was it just plain shock? I was wondering what was going on in her head. And I don't mean that I wanted that spelled out. I liked that I cared what was going on in her head. It's just a shot of an eye. But it said so much that, there's something going on. We don't know enough about what runs around in her head to be able to answer that question. I love that I want to know. It's a small panel, and I was fascinated by that. That's a great example of something you want to do in a book like this very early on, is develop a sense of... Thomas Blake was my latch-on point at the beginning. As the story went on, I started finding myself, especially in multiple read-throughs, focusing more on some of the other characters on the team. I want to know more about them. I want to know more about the choices of bringing these characters in, creating them, putting them together on the team, especially our newer characters. I'm glad there are newer characters. I like that mix, too. I'm glad they're characters that we've seen in the New 52, but they're also characters that are completely new, because I want to see how some of these new characters play out. Who are they? What are their backgrounds? And it's a very interesting dynamic in this group, and I found myself wanting to know more about all of them. I also love that none of them are directly tied to anything else going on in the DC universe right now.
Right.
So these are characters that you can really have some free reign fun with. and I think that's really important in a book like this. These are characters that I want to see developed all the way through. I want to know more about their backstories, their interactions with each other, and where they go from here, if they survive.
Yeah, it's funny because, a couple of, on that one page, I agree with you, the look on Mary's face, it's the one eye, you see, it tells a lot. And I took it when she saw the Talon mask, that she was worried that once again she's going to have to be
Me too.
a Talon. Because, she wore the mask when she was working with Barbara or when she was working with Birds of Prey, but, there was a difference between what she was doing with them and what she's doing here. And just seeing all the masks, seeing that traditional classic Talon mask, I think, has her on high alert saying, oh boy, what am I into now? Do I have to go back to being a Talon again? Who is this people? Who's in charge? Is it the Owls? Are they back? You see all this different stuff that went through her head. I did like right before they zapped the floor, they tried to warn him. Big Shot tried to warn him to step up. He's like, best step up, sport. What? Sorry, friend. Tried to tell you. I did like they were completely kind of looking out for him and trying to help him out. And even when he starts freaking out about being closed in, like, hey, you trembling? You okay? And it's part of there is somewhat of a concern. So these are all going to be killers. These are all various levels of bad guys in this, trapped in this little coffin and being thrust together as this team. But there is somewhat of a concern for each other. And I like that because that was part of, that charm that Secret Six always had. You never lost fact that, yes, these are killers. Yes, these are quote unquote villains and bad guys, but you kind of rooted for them sometimes. You felt dirty sometimes rooting for them, but you always did root for them. And right from the start, you get that same type of vibe that I'm going to be rooting for some of them. Some of them I'm going to like more than others. Others I'm going to say are just really creepy and weird. So it's a great balance of bad guy and evilness, throughout them.
Pop goes Agent Robbins. I loved that sequence because it showed you just how ruthless the captors are. Because these are creepy people in the cell. So the people that are capturing them are just as, if not more, creepy. And that is always interesting when in a Secret Six book, when you've got villains that they make you really uncomfortable. Where are they? How are they trapped? Those are the fascinating part is their environment. They're trapped in an enclosed environment. We knew from the beginning that Catman being cuffed, confined on any level is something that this guy does not want to deal with. Very cat-like. My cats, when we try to get them get one of them in the crate to go to the vet, yeah, good luck. It's a nightmare trying to do that. I like that that's an issue for Catman. It's not overdone, though. There's an interesting, he feels very much like a guy. There's still that macho part, but he loses it. There comes a point where he loses it. Being confined in this area makes him start to snap. Then finding out that they're underwater, that adds another layer to it because you've got this sense of being confined, but that at any point in time, the area you're in could be flooded. And what does that mean for you? Are these people going to let you go? Those are the types of things that sense of terror was really important at that point. And I loved how that visually played out.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's, seeing him freak out, seeing them start to quarrel amongst themselves with Black Alice unleashing a little bit of magic, just enough, and I like the fact that he's like, we're going to die. And she's like, I don't care. It's very simple. She knows she can get out of there at any time. Oh, or she's not afraid to die. This is the stuff with Alice that we've seen this style to her. We've seen this, this is a young lady who's dealt with some major magic at a very young age, and it scarred her. And this is, granted, I don't think in the New 52 we've really seen much of her, if at all. This may be the first introduction, but I'm going by the Alice that we know and love. And I'm thinking we're going to get that same type of character in this, where she's just not an emo kid that does magic. There is some darkness to her. There is some scarring that's happened. And, I loved seeing her just have that moment of unleashing and just, the whole time she's really just calm up until that 1 second I said, get the heck off of me. Bam! It hits him. I was like, wow, that's cool.
Big shot, and seeing his powers manifest, I really liked seeing. They did it was a really nice job by the whole creative team on gradually giving us a glimpse into who everybody is and what their power sets are, for any reminders that were needed. Ferdy, that sequence, I didn't think 7, or even when he said 7, I felt like a dolt that I wasn't thinking about the fact that it's the ventriloquist. Turn the page and it's Ferdy. I'm like, duh. Why didn't I even think that when she said 7? I really liked how it all played out. I liked that she was suitably creepy, but brought humor in as well. She's this book's ragdoll.
Exactly.
She brings that part in there. There's humorous moments, but at the same time, she's terrifying and creepy. She's not cuddly. The Ragdoll had that line too, where you really are endeared to Ragdoll, but you would never want to sit close to him.
No, not at all.
But She's got that factor. There's something endearing about her where, she's talking about the fact that she doesn't look good in the morning. She's looking for like that typical compliment of going, oh, you look great. It's okay. And that kind of stuff. And then Catman's just more validating what she said. I thought that
no
was
one's arguing with you.
No, that was really funny.
Dude, I laughed out loud. That was a howl. That was outstanding. And even just just the suitable creepiness. He saw my unmentionables. You can say that again. And he throws up.
Just really great stuff. It's one of the things I've always loved about Gail Simone's writing. There is a great deal of care put into how to use humor without making it too campy, because you don't want that. This book needs to feel edgy. It needs to feel cool. It needs to feel creepy. It needs to, yet there's character drama that makes you like finding out more about these people. It's got to pull you in. These are people I want to know more about, and I feel ashamed of it. And that's something that's uniquely Secret Six. It's something that I really loved about this issue from start to finish. It felt very much of those emotions that I'm talking about throughout this whole ride is everything I got from this book. The issue was nothing like what I expected. That's what I love about it. It surprised me all the way through, because I think I just had a sense of, oh, we're just going to pick up where we left off. In that mentality, if that makes sense, because it's the same writer, the same book title. It's so not that. And I love that she kind of went back to the drawing board of this concept and said, cool, I did that and loved it. And this book mattered to the people that read it. How do we do this now? This concept now? And give it that same kind of edge and flair of being dangerous, edgy, different, but yet you still care about these people. And you really shouldn't. But you do. On a level that is pretty important. This book stood out for me as being one of the ones in a while I'm like, wow, did this deliver what I anticipated and more? It's risen to the top of my stack already with issue number 1. I am so anxious for issue number 2. I want more. More. I want this weekly. If they could make this weekly, I don't know, no disrespect to the creative team. They need to be locked up in a box, maybe surrounded by water, where they're forced to work on this book day and night until we get more issues and for a month. I don't know that they need to be soiled on or anything like that, but I just want to see more.
We don't need to have that.
I just want more of this book.
And I'm actually okay with them not being, trapped in a coffin in the bottom of the ocean. I'm okay with them actually being comfortable in a nice, 5-star hotel, but with all the amenities. But I agree with you. This needs to be a weekly series, and we need to just have these people focus only on doing this and nothing else in their life. Sorry, it's got to happen that way. But
yeah.
Question for you.
Sure.
We get I love when Catman freaks out when he realizes they're buried at sea. They're buried at the bottom of the ocean. And you see, Alice start, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry. Did she have anything to do with them being captured, or is she sorry about the lashing out, or is she, what is it? Because you go from that panel to the next one and it looks like she's praying. Because I think that's her, down there, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So she's saying the Our Father. So is that her praying, or is that Porcelain praying?
Oh, I don't know. In the background there?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. I took that to be the two personalities of Alice, and you had the one part of Alice where she was, just leave me alone, okay, I don't want to really talk about my powers or anything like that. Then there's that part of her that unleashes and she becomes Black Alice.
Right.
So there's the dual personality thing going on there, and she's realizing that she went to that place and she's apologizing for it. The Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I read that. I was assuming that was her, but you're right that because it's in a distance, it could be I guess I was just assuming it was Alice, but I don't know anybody in there. I could see Porcelain praying that way too. I can't tell from that panel. I'm with you that I can't really tell. I guess I assumed it was Alice because of the panel that preceded.
Yeah, my first read through, I was completely thinking Alice because she had the lash out, and then it's, again, you talk about the dual personality of Alice, just that, we had that crazy kind of energy, that magic where she's doing the backward, speak, spelling and whatnot, and then to the remorseful, oh my God, and just, what did I do? And I kind of see her as maybe using the religion to try to keep the darkness at bay.
Sure.
So she's praying for strength and going through that. But as I was doing, I was thinking, well, what it could be porcelain. It could be that. Only person it couldn't have been is ventriloquist, because she wouldn't do that.
No. And that sequence where it turned with ventriloquist was something that I really, really liked. I want to find out what happens now. Subject, termination, imminent. Who is it going to be? What happens there? Is it going to be somebody? Are they going to have to choose? Are they going to band together to get out of there? What's going to happen with this team? I really, really, really want to know. What a beautiful... I want to say, again, the artwork is very pretty. If there's one thing that's been consistent with Secret Six from the previous series straight on through now to this new series, it's been graced with some really great art teams that have embraced the style of the book. And I can't comment enough on how the colors of Jason Wright play into that. I think there's a great energy when Jason Wright's working on this book of just understanding tone and the need to change tones in a way that makes sense for this book and the theme of it. They don't stay static. They change and shift and invoke emotion in a way that just really works. The whole art team together, there's just a great energy and a great understanding of what the writing is of this book, what the theme is, and how to deliver the art that matches the dialogue. And that's really important that this script is delivered in this method. This is a book. If you did not read this, please give it a shot. I cannot give this a higher possible recommendation. I was worried that I was going to read this and not feel this way. I love that it surprised me in the way that the story was delivered, who the characters were. I didn't walk in, I guess, with a lot of an impression of what was going to happen in this. I was expecting more of what I read before, and I'm so pleasantly surprised at how fresh this feels while feeling like Secret Six to me. And I know that's just seems like all over the place, but that's what I love about it. I'm fascinated by this book now. I'm surprised by this book now. And that's what the first book had for me right from the get-go. So that's why I guess I'm so giddy right now. This really is highest possible recommendation for me. This is on my short list.
The book had you at hello.
It had me at spraying. I was like, really? I mean, like, this is what we're doing in this book. Okay, then.
Yeah, they're coming out the gates firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, it had me at its own version of a jack-in-a-box in a drawer, or whatever you want to call that with what happened with Agent Robbins. It's, yeah.
And they really stuffed him in good, too, because you look at that image and you can see a foot up where the foot should not be, and just, they really just jammed him in.
It was a good use of space.
Yeah, very efficient, making sure they filled the entire area, and covered everything. And there's probably more than one body in that, area as well. I'm going to guess. Yeah, just because he figured they probably make sure there were, they say deal with the witnesses, pay off all the witnesses. I'm thinking maybe any of the guards as well that didn't meet up to the standards. Because I'm assuming Red, the singer in the beginning was hoping that the bad guy, hoping that her agents would actually be able to take him down and do something, and she had to step in. So I'm betting she probably wasn't too pleased with any of them. So I think anybody who survived Thomas is stuffed in that box with the agent. Yeah. So I'm thinking, definitely probably an efficiency.
Hey, by the way, what are you doing this weekend?
I don't know.
You want to go to Rusty Red's? I'll meet you there at 6. I'll show up at 7.
Actually, I heard the place burned down. They had a fire that's been leveled.
The singer's amazing. Yeah. You'll never forget her. Good stuff.
Our next discussion will be on Teen Titans number 4. The writer is Will Pfeiffer with the artist Kenneth Rocafort. Colors by Dan Brown with Blonde and Hi-Fi. Letterer John J. Hill. Cover by Kenneth Rocafort. Associate editor is Ricky Purden with editor Mike Cotton and group editor Eddie Berganza.
Oh, wait, hold on. Start by apologizing.
Yes, definitely apologies.
They don't understand why you're laughing.
I'm going to explain that right now. I went to do the creative team before, and I started laughing because as I went to say Will Pfeiffer, I started to say Will Ferrell. And I'm like, wait, no, that's the wrong person.
That's funny.
As we redid it, I started saying it again, but I was able to power through and say Pfeiffer. So Will Pfeiffer, and I do want to give full credit to him because it's amazing. I've really been digging the Teen Titans, and this is an outstanding issue, and I'm definitely excited that I'm getting my Red Robin stories. I'm getting my Titans stories, and as excited as I was about Earth 1 Teen Titans, I'm equally excited, if not more so, about this team because, again, this is a great continuation of what was going on before, and I was very excited for the previous Titans universe had ended and how everything was wrapping up. So I'm very excited that it's continuing on with that same groove and that really kicking its story.
This book, I feel, has benefited from the relaunch. Now, when I say relaunch, I agree with everything you're saying. I'm so glad that it isn't just we relaunched it now, so we're giving you a brand new direction with the brand new Titans, that there's no connection to what was going on before. It really is a new, I guess you want to say status quo, new direction for them, but at the same time having the history that we've just read. Very important. The new direction I'm really liking. You mentioned the Red Robin focus. This issue is my favorite so far out of this series because of that. It feels like something that belongs in a Tim Drake book. Really clear that Will Pfeiffer knows who Tim Drake is and how to deliver a great Tim Drake story. I really feel that this feels like one of the first stories in the New 52 that he really now feels like Tim Drake that I know and love. That's not a knock on what came before, because we always mentioned when this series originally kicked off, the first version of this series, that was nailed in that first part. He was our guy that we latched on to. But here, I think it's because of the fact that we've got more experience now. It's really highlighted here in this battle with I wanted to say Manchester Black, but really Algorithm. I really liked the techno part of this, how it plays into his computer and technology skills. I'm very into this part of it because I think that just breeds more and more familiarity of what we know and love about him. He feels like a seasoned veteran here, so much closer to what we knew and loved about him before this universe kicked off. As I was reading this issue, I'm like, oh, Jim's got to be loving this as much as I am, because this really is our guy. I mean, he's here right now, very well met and very well delivered. For people who maybe, if you jumped off, you weren't feeling Teen Titans, I can't encourage you enough to pick up this issue. Even though it's the conclusion of this story arc, you really get a nice lens into who Will Pfeiffer sees Tim Drake as being in the New 52, and he does a really nice job of delivering it in a way that doesn't contradict anything that's come before, but feels like advancement for the character.
Oh, big time. And it's when they did the relaunch, I remember thinking, why are they relaunch? Why don't they just continue on the previous numbering? And it wasn't really, I'm going to say until this, that I really see why they did the relaunch. Mm-hmm. This is really, and I loved the Teen Titans before this. I really, it was a build, and I was like, by the end of it, I was like, man, this is really cool. I'm digging where they're going with this, and how, with everything, with the future and jumping back, Superboy with Kid Flash, everything there, all the cool, offshoots and sub stories they were doing. I was really digging it. But I see why they did this. I see why they made this a very dramatic relaunch for the team and renumbering and just going through this. It's the same team building forward, but it is a new status quo. It is a new day for the Titans. And I'm glad that they did this, that it is kind of hopefully people who weren't too happy with the direction the book was going before or fell off of it for whatever reason. I'm hoping they're giving this title a new try, because as we just said, to this issue, you really see Tim Drake. The Tim Drake that I absolutely love as Robin, we're seeing him here. We're seeing the true Red Robin. And I love the fact that, Algorithm is throwing out the fact that, why is the guy with no powers giving me so much trouble? She can't comprehend that the guy who is just a normal person, is able to, hurt her, throw her down, do this damage, and it's not just an easy, clean sweep for her. She's got to actually work at it. And, I love the fact that it's that realization where I'm like, yeah, of course he is. He was trained by the Bat. He is super cool. He is Red Robin. You're not going to throw him down. You're not going to get him easily. I love just seeing that scramble and that fighting on him.
Yes. It was awesome. That's the part that I really loved about it. It felt like Tim Drake. I got to say, too, the characters who have benefited with time, Wonder Girl, Bunker. Bunker was one of those characters in the beginning when I was first kicked off, he felt very generic to me. And that's no insult to the creative team who introduced him. I didn't know him. So I didn't have the attachment to him. As I've gotten to know this character and we've seen his powers evolve, which, happened in the previous series, I really started to like Bunker. He's very cool. I also feel that Gar Logan has benefited from this series. Beast Boy is great in this series. The relationship with him and Bunker is really going well. That sequence with Mom and the people that are getting it so wrong. I love that they're playing on the fact she's a teen hero. All of a sudden, you got a bunch of girls that are looking up to her and saying, we understand her. She's speaking to us. So we are now going to, deliver her message, be a part of this whole thing. I love the fact that they're getting it so horribly wrong.
It's just the Wonder Girl cult.
Yes. Yeah, but doesn't it feel very today? Like this is something you would see on today's news, that this is happening. I think now, more than ever, this type of thing would creep up, and it would be so wrong. It's a great part. It felt very contemporary, very, very today. And I love that whole sequence being a central part of this story, but not the main focus. Because the Tim Drake parts were for me. I needed every single bit of that. I needed Ninja Tim Drake. This is another one where I was thinking, what a great video game this would be. And it is honestly playing the Batman Arkham Origins games and the Batman Arkham games, that whole series. They had the PlayStation Experience this past weekend, and they were showing trailers of Arkham Knight. And I'm sitting there saying, can we please get Red Robin? And I want him with this tool set. I want his with the little bombs and the stealth action. I would love him to be like a playable character in the game where you can do stuff like this. This Red Robin's really cool. It does feel like it. Is that just me, or does this feel like our guy? Like he's there now?
Oh God, this definitely feels like the Tim Drake that I've always wanted, that I've always loved and always wanted to see. And we had moments of the awesomeness that is Tim Drake in previous, but this really is hitting it home. Now, he does make some mistakes. He's trusting, or he appears to be trusting Manchester Black. We don't know for certain if he is, but the thing that also had me hooping and hollering is he calls for backup. This is somebody who has been on a team dynamic. He knows, okay, I might as well call in for some reinforcements. And I do love the fact that he does rely on his team. This is something that Tim has always had issues with because he's so used to the Bat, wanting to be alone. And when he had his team, he was kind of a little bit of a loner, but he's learned to trust these people. He's learned to trust this team. And this, for me, was a really cool moment that he calls for backup, and they're sitting there, and the rest of the team's like, whoa, Robin's calling for help. He never calls for help. Let's move. Even though they're exhausted, they've been up all night, they're doing their thing, but they know we got to respond to this. Let's move now. And I love just those sequences were really cool for me.
When Raven brings them to the scene, I have not liked Raven's costume in the New 52. It just hasn't been my thing. Kenneth Rocafort is starting to make me a believer. Outside that sequence, We Are Here, I loved that visual of like the powers shifting around them and how that looks. It just looks really cool. I enjoyed Kenneth Roquefort's work on the Superman books, when that was going on. So to see him here and doing this take on Titans, it really works. I'm really enjoying this book and the visual style. It's also, in fairness, I don't want to make it seem like I'm throwing under the bus the creative teams that came before on Teen Titans. I'm with you. I really liked Teen Titans before. I think it's an example of evolution where the characters over time have built to this point where I'm in a different comfort level and place with them. I do think, I'm going to say it again, I think this book benefited from the relaunch. Just the shift in, there's an ending of where they were at previously. We got a new creative team that's come on, and they've got new ideas. I applaud them for not throwing what came before out the window. Having that immediate familiarity, but then a sense of evolution, of time. And I know I'm using that word a lot, but I think it's really critically important for this book. It's why by issue 4 right now, really excited for what they're doing here. And I want to applaud this book because this is one you and I really wanted to talk about because of where this book's at right now. It's in a very different place in my stack than it's been in the New 52. And I think that's just over time of it building to this point where I care about these characters now and they're starting to feel like Teen Titans. The Manchester Black thing, Star Labs, it's all kinds of creepy. What does Red Robin think? What does he not think? Is he going along with this? Is he drinking the Kool-Aid or is he thinking something else? I don't know. There's a mystery there. I want to smack Tim upside the head and go, please no, there's something going on. Your bat senses should be going off because Houston, we got a problem with Manchester Black. But I want to go on the journey. I want to see what's going on here and what this ride is like. I like Manchester Black. I like Manchester Black in the previous universe before the New 52 kicked off. I like this more modern take on him. This feels... It would have been a mistake to go to that Manchester Black because he fit that era. This one fits today. He feels very now. The algorithm thing, the way that this all played out, it made him more relevant to today's audience. And even though he hasn't been around that long as a character, did you read him in the Superman books, Manchester Black? Are you familiar with Justice League, from Justice League Dark and those type of things?
Yeah, I do remember him, but I don't completely remember him, to be honest with you. I remember reading some stuff and I remember the name, but I don't remember any specific stories about him.
Or was it Justice League Dark or whatever? You know what I'm talking about. It was that miniseries. Remember, it was like the 12 issue. Was it 12 issues, I think? There was a Justice League book where Manchester Black... I'm probably confusing with Dark, so take that part out of it. But there was a Justice League book that was an offshoot. It was a spin-off where it was a Justice League team. And Manchester Black was the leader of the team. And I liked him in that book a great deal. I liked him in the Superman books leading up to it. Really liked that they didn't go directly to that version of him. They reworked him, took the core of him, but modernized him for today. It works well. It really does. He's a character that needs to feel very contemporary. And the use here is really good. I want to see more of what's going on with him.
Yeah, I knew he was around before, but to be honest, I don't remember the story around him that I read. But I knew he was around, so it's, for me, the way he is here is, for all practical purposes, my introduction to him. So it's kind of good for me that I like how they're playing him, how they're using him, and just these were some great sequences. And again, I love the previous Teen Titans universe. I love what came before this, and this is again one of those things where it's just booming for me. It's really connected, and part of it has been the villains. Part of it has been the fact that he is playing some great games here, and Algorithm was absolutely wonderful. I love the moments where she's got this just the close-up of her eyes a lot of times where it's a little bit open, then she's like, wait a minute, and she gets that malicious, evil, angry look, and then she's furious, and she's going to go kick some serious butt. She's going to take out Black, and I love the fact that as soon as she gets there, he kicks on the camera, he's like, oh, no. She's like, wait, what are you doing? What? And just that, oh, no. She realized exactly she was completely set up, and I thought that was like, oh, man, that's awesome. Again, great usage of artwork, great pairing with the story being told, and especially the close-ups of her face. Just and even just when it's just a single eye that all you're seeing, you're getting so much emotion from that. I was like, wow, this is cool.
Realizing that she'd been suckered in that sequence was really terrific when she caught what was going on. Do you think she's done?
No. Yeah, you think it's, he said it best where she is a program. Even Tim's like, hey, was she a robot? Like, in the simplest sense of the word, I guess you could call her that. She is a program. She is something that, there's got to be a download of her somewhere where she's going to be able to reconstruct herself, come back in a new form in a different way. I can't imagine this is the last we've seen of her. And I'm thinking it's going to come down when they start realizing, that Manchester Black is not the friend. That he is really the bad guy, and she's going to show up and do some damage. And I think that's going to be kind of interesting where she shows up wanting to kill Manchester Black. The Titans, of course, has to stop her because that's what they do, but they're going to realize in the process, hey, this guy's a bad guy. So there could be even a factor. We may see her join the Titans group, and possibly, she could maybe even have a turning. Where she kind of, comes to the light, or she leaves on a positive note, or her story's not done yet. There's so much stuff they can do with her. There's so much stuff they can do with him. Again, great villains, great dynamics. I'm really excited for this stuff, man.
I see her showing up. You said she's a program. She's going to wind up being like a special on Hulu Plus or something like that, where she tries to threaten people with limited commercial interruptions. I really like the character. The artwork on this is another book where I really want to compliment the artwork, because I just think that the art team really embraced the storyline that's being told. Kenneth Rocafort and the colorist Dan Brown with Blonde and Hi-Fi really just did a great job here. This is really well delivered. And lettering, too, I think played a critical part of this. There is a tone and a mood of this book that really is brought about by the entire creative team just working well together. Everything just stood out for me as being a lot of style without being overdone, if that makes sense. And it's a great book, and just one that I really recommend checking out.
And I liked very little the inner dialogue. What everyone's hearing is what's being said. There's a couple moments where Tim's being a ninja that he can't talk out loud, and that makes sense there. But some of these dialogues where you see Manchester Black and Tim talking, we're not seeing what they're thinking. And I love the fact that we don't completely know what each one's laying with all the cards that are being laid on the table. I thought that was a really cool lack of not usage of the inner dialogue. Don't tell me what they're thinking yet. Let me figure it out. Because you see the look on Tim's face. He's definitely thinking here. And he's not, I don't think he's taking him for his word, and I don't think he's completely opening and trusting Black. He either knows something goofy is going on, or he's starting to, as you said, the bat sense are tinkling.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Our next chat is going to be about Batman Eternal, issue number 35, Out of Control. Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV on stories, James Tynion IV script, Ray Fawkes, Kyle Higgins, and Tim Seeley consulting writers, Fernando Blanco on art, Marcelo Miolo on colors, Steve Wan's letters, Tommy Lee Edwards cover, Dave Welgos, assistant editor or associate editor, Chris Conroy editor, Mark Doyle group editor, Batman created by Bob Kane. I know I butchered names there, and I want to apologize because I really wanted to talk about this, because this is a series that twists and turns abound. You think that there's an end resolution, and Alfred's been back in the cave, and he's with the back with the family again, and all that stuff. We've kind of come to a concluding point. No, we are at the mid-season finale, and there's more to come. I really loved how this issue played out and how this story's playing out. You talk about a status quo change for Batman. This is a big, epic story where we see how, because Batman's weapons were used against him and caused incredible, insurmountable damage to Gotham, Batman now is persona non, being declared responsible for this. The police were already after him, but this also, because of Batman Inc. and Bruce Wayne has now bankrupted, or not bankrupt, basically caused all of the assets of Wayne Enterprises to be seized, to the point where Lucius Fox now has more money than Bruce Wayne. and that part is very interesting. Lucius's motivation on this is he issued a warning to Bruce, let Batman know that I'm with Bard, or that Bard has me now, or anything like that, just to give a fair warning of the fact that, this is, so it makes me wonder, is Lucius really in with Bard, or does Lucius know that he should give a warning? He has no choice to try and survive this and be, what do you think Lucius, I guess what I'm asking is, what do you think Lucius's motivation there? My personal feeling is Lucius is doing this so at least he has some form of say or power in some of this. Because if he doesn't, he's going to be in the same place Bruce Wayne's in right now, and he can't, in his mind, he can't afford to be there. I don't think Lucius Fox is buying into what Bard's selling. Do you? Or do you think that he's bitter because of what happened to Bruce?
I say 100% Lucius Fox is still a bad guy. Mm-hmm. And Lucius has to do this stuff, and it's part of the thing where, hey, tell Batman, of everything he's got, he has me. So basically, it's the warning to him saying, hey, I know this system as well as Batman does. I built the stuff. I designed it. So you got a plan for the fact that I'm going to be working with Bard. And it's the whole, I completely took it the entire time I was reading it, that was Lucius saying, hey, I got to do this, and even, just the meeting with him saying, hey, all your assets are frozen. The majority of your assets that were tied directly to the company, your bank accounts have been frozen and your property has been seized. He's laying everything out to Bruce, letting him know exactly, this stuff is, it's got to happen. And even previous stuff where they were initially starting if you think last issue where they were talking about, hey, you got to start putting some distance between you and Batman. You got to start putting some buffers. And he was warning Bruce about this exact type of stuff. So Lucius has always been on Bruce Wayne's side. Lucius has to know, I'm assuming Lucius knows that his son was Batwing. I always assumed that he kind of figured out, he put two and two together and knew that his kid was Batwing. Especially with, he knew all the technology. He knew there was a new Batwing, and I'm assuming he guessed that it was his kid because he is that smart. And he may even know that Bruce is Batman, but there's always going to be that doubt where they play it just right, where I'm like, I'm not 100% certain if he knows. But I 100% believe Lucius is on the side of the Bat.
I loved Vicky Vale in this issue because I didn't, her reporter instincts are going off, and she's recognizing that there's something up with Bard. And that she needs to discover his true story, to the point where she's researching it now. Very dangerous place to be in, because Bard's got a very dangerous life. But we start to learn the beginning of Bard's motivations here. Why is Bard doing this? Bard's doing this because of the fact that his life was destroyed by somebody who was emulating Batman. So this is his chance to take that down. Who is the major player in this? That's the part I'm anxious to find out. I want to know more about what is the driving force behind this situation right now. Do you have any theories?
Well, I think you look at, you got Hush. I'm thinking this is all still part of Hush's master plan. He picked Bard. He recognized that Bard was going to go over the edge because he even says, he's doing better than I even expected.
Hush was invited. Remember, we saw that in one of the previous issues. Hush got the invite.
Yeah.
So there's somebody.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
Bard got an invite. Bard got an invite too, didn't he?
Well, Bard, I thought got the invite from Hush. But I thought Hush brought Bard in.
Yeah. Regardless, there was an invite for both.
Right.
So there's still a player to be named.
Oh God, who's the one, the vigilante, the killer who goes after vigilantes, who does the onomatopoeia or whatever his name is, or
onomatopoeia, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's his name. Wonder if he is the force behind this.
I don't know.
Yeah, because you think about it, because Bard came from Chicago, right? Mm-hmm. And that's, I thought, where he was at.
Could it be Owlman?
It also, definitely could be Owlman as well. Because, Owlman's running around this universe, so it definitely could be Owlman as well. There's so many different people it could be. And how did you feel about the jump forward?
It could be? Bruce's older brother.
I thought he was dead.
Well, but wouldn't the Court of Owls thing and all that kind of stuff? Isn't there a possibility like he come back? I don't know.
Well, true. Yeah. Yeah. When you're Talon and with all the Talon juice, you could always come back.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm. Let me put it this way: I'm not sold on anything. I'm just throwing out ideas.
Yeah. There's so many different possibilities on this, but here's how did you feel about the jump forward? Because you think about the end of issue 34, Hush runs into Penny 2, runs into Julia. And then, because I was expecting 35, we'd either see a fight sequence, we'd see something, and then no, we jumped to 2 weeks after the fall of Hush. I'm like, wait, hold on, what happened in between?
I didn't have any problem with that. I really quite liked how the issue played out. I don't always want to see that. I think it fit this story, though, to put us in a place we're going to give you some action. We want, to see that time has passed. There's certain things that happened, to Bruce's world that wouldn't have happened real time. And this story's been happening real time. So I don't know that we needed to see Wayne Enterprises slowly crumble to this. I think for us to look at this a huge aftermath to these big, huge events that played in there. We saw Hush taken down there. So the idea that he would be captured in the Batcave makes a lot of sense. Also, it gives some time. I don't need to see an issue of them pouring concrete, and stuff like that. So I like the idea that during this 2 weeks, they put something into play where now we have a way to keep what's happening with Arkham, with the Wayne Manor, with Arkham, because we've seen that in the book, Arkham Manor. So now we know that these events are starting to happen concurrently with what's happening here. Is that how you're reading it?
Well, you think about it, Arkham Manor is happening after these events.
Okay.
Because Arkham Manor is the final pieces. This is still, they haven't brought in any inmates at this point in time. Only one who's there is Hush, who's locked up in the Batcave. And you think back to the beginning of Arkham Manor, they didn't show Hush locked in the cave. So Hush may not be in the cave for very long. He may be somewhere else. He may escape, or they maybe just didn't show him, in the intros of that issue, in those couple issues. So we don't know what's exactly going to happen to Hush yet. And I like, I did enjoy the jump forward. I joke more than anything saying, hey, what happened? But it was kind of a neat thing where they just threw us. I'm like, oh God. And then he's captured. She's alive. I'm like, oh, okay. And I did enjoy the story being told, because I agree with you. Watching concrete dry is not exciting. I've done it for a living. It's not fun. So just, the jump forward here was kind of neat. But I do want to see some backstory. I do want to see flashbacks. I would like to see that final fight that captured Hush. Who was it that took down Hush? Was Julia able to take him down? Was she able to put a hurt on him? Did Bruce swoop in for the save? What happened there?
The badge when Bard's holding it, during that whole chase sequence. The chase sequence was really intense, and I loved that. What was going on with Lucius on that one, just recognizing you could kill him. This is going too far. There's a line for Lucius at this point, and I wasn't sure how to feel about Lucius at this point, and I like that because I want to believe that Lucius is trying to keep himself relevant in a place where he can help Gotham as a whole. Being unsure of what's going on with Batman, being unsure of Bruce Wayne, I could see that being a possibility here. But Bard's behavior in all this, and the fact that he's willing to go to any levels, no matter who it hurts or what danger there could be to anybody, is something that, as we're finding out more about Bard, that he's the look of a man who's prepared to burn the world down to make things right. And we see that badge, knowing that this is somebody from back in his history in Detroit, Jody Hawkins, his partner, somebody he cared about deeply. This is something that he's holding Batman responsible for. Batman Incorporated responsible for. Again, Wayne Enterprises being a part of all that. He's taken down everything that would drive... He's been a part of taking down everything that would drive Batman. Who else is responsible for this?
Here's a scene that, it's kind of... I actually really dig this scene. And it's something I didn't notice before. It's during the whole where the Batmobile is driving through Wayne Enterprise and it's going out the window and Julia's struggling to get one thing back online. And it's that scene where Hush is like, oh, he's doing so much better than I'd ever hoped. right as she's struggling, just seeing Hush, and I'm assuming it's Hush, just laughing. The heavy ha 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 ha. It just, and especially the way his mouth is kind of twisted up because you're just seeing the close up of the laughing.
It looked like the Joker.
Jokerish, yeah.
If we didn't see the mask taken off of him, I would have thought the same thing too. Because it does look like I had to do a double take on that.
But that's just, for me, is a really cool kind of like, wow, that's kind of neat.
Right. That was something that I really loved about this one, was seeing those tidbits in this. This has really been a good series. What have you thought about this series, like in real time, with everything that's going on there?
Oh, I'm digging this series. This is one that I didn't know where we were going to go with it, what was going to happen, and I was like, okay, this is kind of a cool story. And with the weekly thing going, I had a period where I'd stockpiled some of the issues just because I was dealing with reading other stuff, craziness at work. But now I'm at the point where not only am I not stockpiling it, but I'm buying the digital version so I can read it on Wednesday and not wait.
Your allies have been slaughtered. Your city is burning to the ground. I have taken everything from you piece by piece. Watch, Bruce. Watch as you lose everything. So it's somebody who knows who he is. Part of me is wondering if it could be Ra's al Ghul.
Ra's al Ghul, Hush.
Yeah.
Who else knows that he's Bruce?
I don't know. I think that's it. Unless, like I said, then, do we go to his brother?
His brother also, Owlman.
Yeah, Owlman would know. Those are all things that, I don't know, I'm incredibly interested. I like the mystery. The mystery of this is really important to me. I'm really enjoying that part. The delivery as a weekly book, for me, is pretty critical. Like, I'm really enjoying that aspect of this.
Yeah, I'm wondering, man. It's just like, it's one of those things where I love this mystery. The fact that this is a really cool mystery, because you're thinking, oh, it's Hush running, but it's not. We've seen evidence that it's not Hush running the show, but this is a Hush thing. This is so completely fits who Hush is, and I was like, man, this is cool.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Very good series.
Our next discussion will be Gotham by Midnight, #1. The writer is Ray Fawkes with artist Ben Templesmith. Letters by DZ Cienti. Cover by Ben Templesmith, with variant cover by Andrea Sorrentino, with Marcello Maiola, Mailo. The assistant editor is Dave, Wielgosz. Editor is Rachel Gluckstern, with group editor Mark Doyle.
Now that means that Ben Templesmith is doing all the art. Colors, everything on that. And I really love the tone of this book. When they announced that they were introducing more, Batman-related titles like this, it's really important to set them apart and to have an edge. This is great because this is almost Gotham Central meets Constantine.
Yeah.
And I like that part of it because it's not really either. It is something in the middle, which makes it different. And I like that part of it because this is a very creepy world that we've seen the Batman universe deal with the supernatural. I adore the artwork on this. I think it's an artwork that really just suits this type of book. And it's a different sort of style. I love the opening where, oh, God almighty, only in Gotham. It was very Exorcist in its appearance. Yeah. And I really love that, kind of homage to that theme and that style of, you would look at that building and just kind of go, what am I doing here?
It's an abandoned building that is a police district. Mm-hmm. It's the Precinct 13 building, and it's an abandoned building. And I love the fact that only in Gotham would that be a police precinct.
That is like so perfect, and that's something that I really thoroughly enjoyed about this one was that opening. It sets a lot. It introduces a Sergeant Rook, who it was great. Obviously, I'm looking to see the Spectre in this. That's part of my draw. I'm glad very early on we started introducing Rook and Weaver and really kind of delving into the fact that this is not going to be about Corrigan exclusively. It's going to be about the whole precinct. And that's important to me because I want a cast. I want a cast that I can follow. I want the supernatural stuff involving the Spectre. Sure, I want to see all that. But to me, it's far more interesting if we get to know the whole crew, why they're there, what's their motivation to continue serving in their condemned precinct, or whatever you want to call it. That's the part where you could see with how big Gotham is, and everything that's going on with Batman right now, why he wouldn't be able to be involved in this part of it. It's just a different sort of part of the cursed world of Gotham. And that opening, I think, is just so appropriate in this. You know, this Gotham City is cursed, poisoned by shadow. It can't possibly survive without protection. And just really showing how this is set aside in something just a little bit different.
Yeah, when I first read this, I was like, what is going on here? And it was one of those things where when we get this art style, this always throws me. You know, I appreciate the fact that it's, for the story and it's personalized and it works for this, the creepiness of the story. But it takes me a minute to catch on to it and get the groove and, just get my understanding with it. And it's funny because as I was about halfway through the issue, I really started just remembering how I felt when I started reading Justice League Dark. Mm-hmm. And how that was throwing me off, and how now I absolutely love Justice League Dark. And it was something like it was that realization that I'm like, you know what, Jim, you do enjoy these style of books, you do enjoy this type of artwork, and it was one of those things where I kind of like I gave myself permission to really enjoy this and appreciate it and like it. And by the end of the first issue, I completely changed on it. Second, third read through, I was really just, salivating at, just the art differences and the style, the creepy coolness of, just the supernatural aspect of Gotham and just the premise behind the book. I was like, man, this is okay. I see where they're going and why they're doing this. Cause, it was weird. And it was the fact that realization I had about just, I do like this style. I got to just let go and read and enjoy.
This isn't a knock. I always fascinated by that because both books that you mentioned are supernatural books. They've got an art style that matches that theme and tone. And the reason why I marvel at that, out of the two of us, you're more of the... I love supernatural stuff, don't get me wrong, but you're more the fan of that genre.
Yeah.
So I always find it fascinating, and this is not a knock on you in any way. It just goes to show you how you can't make assumptions on what a person's art preferences are or understanding of certain kinds of arts based on what you know about them. That's a very personal journey in how you get there. And I get genuinely interested when you talk about your experiences reading a comic like this, because my assumption would be, oh, this is going to be right up Jim's alley because of the fact that it's supernatural and there's an art style that matches that and that theme and tone's present in there. And it sounds like you got there, but it wasn't as clean of a journey as I might assume. And I love that my assumption's wrong, because it just goes to show that it really is a very personal journey and perception is not always what you think. It wound up there, but a different way.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing. And it's part of it is just my maturity these past, 8 years we've been doing this. That when I was my first introduction to comics, a book like this I wouldn't have enjoyed. Mm-hmm. Just because I would look, that looks weird. And, and it was just, how it was. So even nowadays, I still kind of revert back to that kid mentality. I always look at comic books and I want the dun-da-da comic books. I want the art style that fits that style of that. Yes, this is the hero. This is the bad guy. And I always have that in the back of my head. And I got to remind myself, no, there's been some amazing stuff, man. Enjoy this. And, it was weird because normally it takes me like an issue or two of a different art style like this to really get into it and sink my teeth into it. But something just clicked and I was like, I think maybe I'm maturing on some ways and not on other ways. But, my appreciation and just enjoyment of this, was something that about halfway through, I was like, I really got into this. I was really like, yes, this is cool. Cause I do enjoy the supernatural. I enjoy those type of shows and that type of stories and just that, the fantasy aspect of it and everything that comes from there. So I think, I don't know. It just, this really sang to me. And this was a really cool moment because we got some great detective work. We got some cool police stories. Plus we also got the supernatural. And then we got this art style that fits the story, that fits the groove we're getting. I was very happy with how this thing played out, especially as you said earlier, this isn't just a Spectre story. This is about Precinct 13. This is about this unit. This is about these guys guys and girls, who deal with the super freaky, the supernatural in Gotham. And Gotham is a city that is alive itself, and there's going to be darkness to it. There's light to it. There is just this life force, and some of it's good, some of it's evil. Well, this is dealing with the darkness in Gotham.
Yeah, I like that even when it comes to the Spectre, Corrigan, we get a delving into Corrigan as the police officer, and that's who Batman is dealing with when he shows up on the scene. I do think what part of our difference is two things. I guess I made an assumption that you would naturally die for this because of your love for supernatural, but a lot of that for you is through novels, through television, and through film.
Yeah.
It isn't through the comic medium, where you walked into this with a certain perception of what comic art and comic stories are for you. And you're right, it is more of when you have the dun-to-duns. It's the Superman fan in you that's drawn from. It fascinates me when we have these discussions, because I do make generalizations and assumptions when it comes to you because of what I know about you and your tastes in literature. So it's interesting to see what that journey looks like for you. It is for me, I think my comfort level of shifting art for Bat books comes from years of reading Legends of the Dark Knight, when you had the top tier artists throughout, comics, really diving into their own expression of Batman storytelling. So you had a lot of variation on what kind of Batman stories there are. So when you get something like this, this is just this is their take on the Batman universe, and it works really well here. This is to me, it's just terrific art. I'm a fan. I was a fan of Ben Templesmith's artwork before this. Which is also something that's I'm assuming different between the two of us. You probably haven't had the same exposure to his artwork as I have.
Yeah, I did not. If I've read his stuff, I don't remember. And I don't know. I don't remember reading his art style. And I don't have a comfort with what he's worked on before. I probably have read it, but I just didn't realize it was him.
I liked seeing, the bringing in specialists to start analyzing the situation, and just how even in that case there's a creep factor going on. Yes, and now pure salt, like Lot's wife, Sister Justine says, "Are you a religious man, Sergeant Rook?" Just those bits, and I'm reading it horribly, but as I'm looking through that whole sequence, you just see the creep factor of what's going on there, and Sergeant Rook really, feeling things out, but being very calculating. There's a seriousness to Rook that I find interesting in all this.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you think about always with internal affairs, they always have the worst reputations. And usually whenever you see them in any type of TV shows or movies, IA is always the creepy, the rat patrol. They're the guys who go after the cops. That just, they've never had a positive, portrayal of, internal affairs. And you think about it in reality, what they're doing is they watch the Watchmen. They keep the police honest, and they investigate the potential outages and bad, and get rid of, what's bad for, a police department, bad for a city. So it's not completely a justifiable, analogy, but it's, way people perceive them. And I love the fact that he came in here saying, hey, you guys have absolutely zero cases. You've got zero closed cases. You appear like you've done absolutely nothing. And add to the fact that we have these outside, these outsiders who are on the payroll. So it's not even just, cops on the payroll. You are bringing in quote unquote experts. Who are these experts? What are they experts of? And I love the fact that he's going in, he's auditing them, and he's saying from the very beginning, I'm going to shut you guys down. This is wrong for the city. I'm taking you out. And they're just like, well, just wait one night. By the end of the night, you'll be a believer. And I that for me was a really cool just dynamic between them, because, I just know how they're constantly perceived. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh man, what is he going to see in this first night? And by the end of this issue, you're like, yeah, he's going to be a believer.
He's written like a skeptic. And I think that's really important in this. And visually, really, I want to compliment Templesmith on the visual use there, because when you see him, his analysis of everything he's looking at, conversations people are having with him, they show a lot of thought, but they also show the skepticism. That emotion's readily apparent right there. That's that part of the book I'm really digging as well. Just this sense of who he is as a character, because he's our main guy. You know, we're kind of following his journey through all this. I mean, obviously Corrigan, I was expecting to be the heavy hitter that he is in this story. I liked that there was a shift of focus between the two of them. We'd have a Corrigan moment here. We'd have this guy's moment here. Corrigan moment, back to this guy. And it brought us into the book in, I think, two very different ways that eventually converged. And I wanted to see that convergence of the storyline while introducing us to the supporting cast, the other members of the other members of the main cast, however you want to look at it. This book needs to be an ensemble, and I want to see more of the ensemble. Seeing a lot of this through the eyes, though, of our invader into the story was something that I think was helpful for us as the reader.
Yeah, and it was funny because when I used to look at this art style, I would think that it didn't have as much detail as, more traditional comic art. And I know it's a silly statement, and I used to think that. Looking at now, you see some of these great panels, especially when Corrigan first meets Rook, and just the look on Corrigan's face, you see what we see. I bet you change your mind in one night. And just that look on his face, he's like, hey, I know what you're going to go through. And you talk about just the skeptic look where he's like, are you drinking? I love the fact that, it just, you get these moments. You get to see what exactly you're getting pieces into them, and you're understanding, and it's some really cool details and some really cool emotional reaction from the face, from the coloring, from the, just the heavy shadowy tones, and just even when you go into the nice fancy Mayfair neighborhood, you still have the heavy shadow overhang on everything that's coming in. Even these sweet little girls that are being introduced. Guess what? There is still just that heavy darkness, because these are two young ladies who have been in the presence of evil. And I love the fact that they're tainted and they're tinted, and they have that darkness to them.
I liked that Drake was introduced at this point, too, because she was a welcome addition to this story. As we started to see Corrigan, Drake, and Rook together, this world started to get fleshed out for me. I like that the focus was very small in the beginning and gradually introducing people, but then there was this larger sense that was gradually developed. And Drake being there gave me a larger sense of scope. It's not just these two. This is a whole precinct, and I wanted to see more of that.
Yeah, and the creepiness, whenever you have creepy kids, that always adds to a level of... There are certain movies I can't watch just because the main characters are creepy kids, and it always freaks me out. So when we got these little girls in there, I love seeing Drake, just her dealing with that. Because you get the young rookie who's the ideologist, who, she wanted to become a cop because she saw this cop dive into a river and save someone, and she wanted to be that champion. She became a cop for all the right reasons, and she's in this darker world. She's in this universe, and I love seeing her interacting with the kids. I love seeing her interact with Corrigan and the sergeant. This is, she's going to be one of those characters that is going to be really sweet throughout this series going.
Yeah, that part of this story, I think, was really great. Every time a new cast member, a new person was put in, whether they were just making a guest appearance or if they were a main player, they added something fundamental to the story. There was nothing that was wasted. Like, the panels were very well used. The story process was very well done. This story really cooked, but it also knew when to slow down and make you think through things and become more real time. There was an interesting balance of faster-paced moments with very slow, calculated moments that I think worked really well in this story. The dialogue interactions between the characters, in this issue in particular, I think were particularly critical to me because I need to get to know these people. And the only way you're going to get to know them, because they're human, is through dialogue. And how they think about things, where they stand on things, how they start to feel with each other because of it. And I think those only fed into a greater understanding of Rook's motivations and where he was coming from as well.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, it's, you talk about just the skeptic, interacting with the believers. Some of the cool stuff that was Yeah. Oh God, what's the show? David Duchovny.
Oh, X-Files.
Thank you. I can't believe I drew a blank there on X-Files. But that was always the need of that show, where you have your skeptic walking right in hand with the believer. And here we have this team of believers, and you're thrusting the skeptic in with it right in the middle of this investigation. And I love how it's, again, it's a team playing out. They're leaving Drake with the kids until Sister Justin can show up, and Rook and Corrigan are going further investigation. I was like, man, this is a really cool setup. I want to see where this goes. It was a great, just kept going through. It kept up action, but really there wasn't action. There was interviewing, there was deductive reasoning, but it was still always something going on, always keeping you thinking. I think that's the strength of a really cool supernatural weirdo horror mystery type of story being told. It's the discussion, the dialogue, just the everyday reaction is still action packed, because it's keeping the story going, and it's keeping everything flowing, and it keeps you guessing what's going to happen next, what's going to happen with the kids, what's going to happen here, where are they going, what are they going to deal with.
You mentioned before, some of the exploration and investigation that was going on in this. That was, to me, fleshed out by detail, like you were saying earlier, facial expression, the way they're carrying themselves, shadowing, lighting. There was this real sense of a building drama that was coming across with some of the details in this artwork as well. And you're right how this is an artwork that you appreciate more and more as the story goes on, what's really being done here. I appreciated it especially in the second read-through, where I was really looking through, I'm like, wow, there's a ton more depth to this art than I realized in the first read-through. And it was fascinating to me how much depth was here that I didn't catch.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's especially when they started getting into the slaughter swamps and all that stuff. When they started leaving Gotham, they're going out into the swamp, and they're getting into the filth. And it was, again, really cool moment seeing Drake with the kids, and flashing between Drake with the kids and then the swamp Drake, and they kept rotating the different panels. And even though on some of the panels they didn't have any words, it was just an image, and it was just just giving us things. I was like, man, this is cool. It had that flow through it. It had that movie. It had that excitement. It had that build up, and I was like, they're building to something. What are they going to find? Who is actually doing this? Who out in the swamp? What creepy weirdness are they going to run into?
The sense of light sourcing, I thought, was really well done in the swamp. That really stood out for me as when you start adding in special effects that start to feel like actual special effects. Their appearance in certain areas led to shadows, led to a sense of mystery as far as what's on the other side of the light and what they're seeing. It added a sense of darkness and intense darkness in a situation that you aren't really there. You aren't really seeing that. That kind of stuff I really appreciate. To the point when we got to the page where we see the uh-oh and you see the building, that meant more because of the gradual build to that point in that whole page prior to it. And that was something that I really appreciated.
Those pages right there were absolutely outstanding. Showing up at the creepy haunted swamp schoolhouse, and you get that uh-oh exactly, and then it goes into Sister Justin showing up right as the girls start really freaking out. And again, you're going from the one area back and forth, and I love the fact that it's right then and there that the skeptic starts to understand, because he's like, my God, do you feel that? What is that? It's bad. It's very bad. And you see right then and there, the skeptic is in on it. He's like, don't go in there. And he is, he's freaked out. He's creepy. He's like, hey, what's going on here? This isn't right. And I love just the terror on his eyes, the look on his face. He's like, this can't be. What's going on here? And as that's going on, you've got the girls freaking out with bursting into fire. You've got the, Detective Drake yelling, death, it's here. And, all that, crazy stuff going on. I was like, man, this is awesome.
I'm pretty sure that's my 5th grade classroom. And that's really what he's scared of. I mean, because I was in a very similar class to that. So I don't know. I'm I'm not quite. That ending was really a nice cliffhanger because we got to know enough about the characters at this point that I was interested and very in by the end of the first issue. It was great to see this all play out, though. I really dug this book. This is another good, there's been a lot of new books that have been coming out lately, and they've been all doing a great job of setting themselves apart. Especially in the wake of, the Death Stars like Secret Six coming out. This book really is a welcome addition to my reading library, though, because I feel it's taking a supernatural look in Gotham and delivering something that's unique to the supernatural genre in comics.
Yeah, see, your nuns, the nuns you dealt with were nothing like these nuns. The nuns you dealt with are sweet and wonderful people.
Okay. I'm thinking back to fifth grade class, and I very similar to other teaching experiences. We've had really good teachers, and we had scary teachers. And I'm thinking particularly to a time when we were not appreciating music, and she was looking at us like we were in big trouble. I'm seeing that kid at the dunce hat in the corner. I'm sitting there like we had times where when we were going to school, if you didn't remember prayers, you were forced to stand up in front of class until you remembered them. Now, wait. If you didn't know them to begin with, let's forget not remembering them. You didn't study them. Let's go on that end. You're left to stand up in front of the room until you know them. Now, let me clarify that. We didn't have the book with the prayer in it to be able to practice reciting over and over again until you knew it. You were forced to stand there until, like, through osmosis or something like that, you all of a sudden knew what was going on. So stuff like this, I'm like, wow, this isn't really too far off. Maybe it's, I guess I'm more in Corrigan's camp. I'm not so worried about this, but I'm taking somebody else through it to show them how it is.
I wonder what that kid did to be sitting in the corner with the dunce hat.
He wasn't appreciating music.
I don't know. See, I still think the nuns were sweet and wonderful people because I didn't have to deal with them as much as you had to deal with them because I was the public school kid who only one day a week had to deal with the nuns, and they liked us. They may have been not so favorable of you, but it's public school kids. When we came in for our CCD, man, they loved us
because they were trying to save you from your evil ways. You don't understand that.
I think we were less evil than you guys were.
No,
I think
we were told. We were told that you were the lesser. I was taking the joking out of it. I had some very, very good nuns, and there were a couple that were crotchety. We would have probably told you stories like this.
You had a couple who could swing a ruler like a samurai warrior. Let's be honest.
We had one that had a rosary that went from her hip all the way down to the floor, and it banged onto her leg like she was carrying a shotgun. and you would swear that if she wanted to, she could whip that thing off of her belt and go all ninja on you with it. So it's funny when you read this kind of book, how it kind of evokes those memories, especially with that closing sequence that I'm like, I do kind of remember fifth grade feeling like that at times. I really enjoyed this. This was a very, very good first issue and set itself apart as a different sort of book, which we've seen these new Batman books do, the new Batman family titles that are coming out, which I really quite enjoyed with them.
Now, here's my question. Well, all kidding aside, I agree with you. This is a really great creepiness. Mm-hmm. Are those two little girls who survived, are they dead? Did they burst into flames? Or is it flames bursting out coming at them in the house? Because it looks like the walls are bursting into flames and the little girls are running from it, and you kind of see demon faces in the fires. And I don't think the little girls are dead yet.
Or is it the girls that spontaneously combust?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. I
don't know. That's what I'm going to have to find out next issue.
Yeah, next issue. This is definitely going to be. This really kicked it great. Great kickoff. And this is a heck of an ender because just the super freaky dead evil nun in the creepy classroom with the kids bursting into flames and just wow, that's a cool ending. It's got me wanting to read issue 2, see what happens.
Yeah, it's funny. We talked about 4 books this episode, and they were 4 very different titles, but all evoking certain kinds of emotion from us, and it's really great. And the art styles were all completely different in all the books. I really like that. I mean, that to me is where I get excited. It's fun to read different books with different art takes and different sensibilities in the storytelling and really a different feel to them. Each one of these is valid as a reading experience for me and enjoyable as a reading experience to me because they're so different. So I know it's always my hope when we do episodes like this, especially when we're talking about 4 very different titles, that for people who are looking for that new book to try or that book to shift to because maybe they're not enjoying one thing that they're reading, that they'll be able to pick up one of these titles, Secret Six, and pick it up and read it, and Secret Six, check it out, and make sure that they follow it, Secret Six, because we don't want these books, Secret Six, canceled at any point in time because Secret Six, we enjoy them.
Going for the subliminal advertisement. Not so subtle there, pal.
Yeah, no, it's joking aside. First of all, I do want everyone to read Secret Six because it's one of my all-time favorite books, and I'm thrilled that it's back and feels so good. It's these other titles that were all here, every one of them. I'm hoping, because they're so different, that there's people listening to this that will check them out and read them, because the creative teams are really delivering very high on these titles. It's a cool time to be a comic fan. There's a lot of really great product out there. And it's fun when you and I have an opportunity to just kind of randomly start picking books that we were digging and to talk about them just from that perspective, that they're current stuff. And have this kind of conversation. I enjoy these episodes. So I hope everyone else listening got that experience as well. Maybe gets a chance to try something new that they haven't before.
Holy caffeine!
I want to shout out our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. And please call us in on anything that's going on in comics that you want to chat about. If there's books that you're digging and you want to chat about them, if there's stuff you want us to talk about in the show, call in, give us some topics that you'd like to discuss. It's always fun to hear from our listeners. I want to shout out our Facebook group. We have a show Facebook group that you can find right from our website, ragingbullets.com. There's an About Us section that I've just updated recently with things like, my PlayStation ID. We're on Google+, Facebook, Twitter. It's the way really to reach the show. So I encourage you to go to ragingbullets.com, click on the About Us section, and just find out places that you can reach and contact us. I do use Twitter to feed from our show website. So if you're looking for information on when episodes are released, I feed them right from our website to Twitter. So if you're a Twitter fan, it's a great way to find out what's going on with us. And then I post it to our Facebook group. I post to Google+. So, there's whatever your preferred social media method is, we want to be there for you. I've been playing my PlayStation a lot lately. That was actually my early kind of Christmas birthday present from my wife. The fact that I've got a PlayStation 4 now. So if you're in part of the PlayStation ecosystem and you want to add me as a friend, please do. I love hanging out and chatting with people who are friends of the show, and maybe we'll play some games together or something. I'm trying to get better with the whole social gaming part. It's not a strength of mine. I just want to get better at hanging out and playing games with people and shooting at each other and do all kind of fun stuff that you do online. I know we've played MMOs together. Are you, or have you traditionally been much of an online gamer outside of that, Jim?
No, I've never really, I think the MMO or, City of Heroes was really my big social playing. Before that, it was, I'm trying to think here. I think that City of Heroes is probably the first and only time I've ever really had the interaction with people, other than if our one friend Huey, I would do sometimes LAN parties and whatnot, and we'd be connected that way, but never really over the network. And that was just, Command and Conquer. We used to do Command and Conquer stuff and Diablo stuff. Yeah,
I'm playing Final Fantasy 14 on the PlayStation, and really digging that. I like an MMO every so often. I was playing Star Wars: The Old Republic for a while. I played through 2 characters all the way through to the end of their story arc, both light side and dark side of the Force. And now I'm kind of into the whole online Final Fantasy thing, and I'm part of I guess what would be a guild. I just started, and the people that I'm playing with are really nice, so I'm into it, and I'm like, I want to get better at doing this. And then I have Destiny on there as well, so I'm starting to play that, which is you can play it by yourself, but it's a lot more fun if you play with people. So I'm starting to get into those games and more of the co-op ecosystem there. I'm starting to separate my gaming from my PC, just because I kind of want to, have my computer set up for work and for podcasting. I just kind of like the separation. So it's nice to have a game system again and just kind of have my gaming focused to that. And I just happen to really like that environment. So if anybody's a PlayStation gamer, you want to add me, please feel free to add me. If there's games you want to play together, I'd certainly love to jump in and play something with you and kind of have some fun talking comics. That's the kind of stuff I want to do that. I mean, that's kind of neat. It's fun to have that kind of environment. So hopefully I'll chat with some people that way. Sponsoring us again is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, the deals of the week. They just have amazing deals that constantly rotate at 50% off. Royals Masters of War from DC is 50% off, only $7.49. Superman Unchained, the deluxe edition hardcover, 50% off, only $14.99. The great thing I love is, like we did a whole segment there with Gail Simone. I'm going on here right now and I'm doing a search for Gail Simone, and just a ton of her work pops up. So you can see all kinds of cool stuff that you may have missed from Gail Simone. Ben Templesmith, we were talking about his work, and plop up his work and learn more about him. There's all kinds of really cool stuff over there. So I really enjoy InStockTrades.com for the amazing deals. Over at DCBService.com, I mentioned at the beginning, Suiciders #1, Lee Bermeo. In the post-apocalyptic city of New Angeles, killing isn't just a crime, it's entertainment. When the big one finally hits the West Coast, Los Angeles was left in ruins. And when the U.S. government decided to cut the city loose, things went from bad to worse. To survive, LA did what it does best. It turned survival into entertainment. Now, 30 years later, the city of New Angeles is thriving once more thanks to the blood sport known as Suiciders. A TV series that combines the spectacle of hand-to-hand combat with elaborate high-tech obstacles that test each competitor's ability to survive. Sounds like a great book. $3.99 regularly, 50% off, only $1.99. Something different and interesting from Lee Bermeo. Amazing artwork. I also want to shout out that they are a digital partner, whether you do Comixology or mydigitalcomics.com. You can link those accounts and earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. Costs you nothing more and just earns you credit very, very quickly for your digital purchases. I want to thank both of those sites for supporting our podcast. Our next episode, Jim, we are going to do part 2 of our discussion where we started taking a look at the Bat books and where are we at on them, what books are we digging. We just started 2 of them on this episode. We want to do the new one and kind of get caught up with Eternal. We're going to jump in next week and talk about some of the other titles that are in the Bat family as a 2-part Bat catch-up. After that, we're going to be jumping back and taking a look at kind of the mid-season finales of some of our favorite DC TV shows that have been out there. A lot of good stuff going on in The Flash, Arrow, Gotham, and Constantine. So we're going to little kind of catch up on where we're at in those shows. What are we digging and loving with those as we head into the holiday season? So we will see you next week.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can 2 grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You-Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.